whenever you're ready. Not now. Wait about 5 seconds.
You want to no podcast.
Yeah.
Nice.
There it is. Let's go.
Hey, everybody. My name is Cooper,
I'm Jonah.
I'm Wesley.
and this is the Unknown Podcast. Thank you for choosing our video today. We want you. Anyways,
So like
For what? To do what?
it's like the political
it's like the army,
Uncle
like
Sam.
the Uncle
Yeah.
Sam.
That's what I was thinking.
We should put one behind me.
Are we recruiting?
We want you
We want you. That's funny.
as a brother in Christ or
Nice.
sister. We don't discriminate.
I was wondering how you're going to turn that into like a biblical
Yeah.
statement.
Anyways, what are we talking about today, guys?
Lust?
Nice.
Yeah.
Almost forgot.
Yeah, we are. That's a fun one.
Yeah, talking about lust today.
Mm.
Man,
Fun.
it's a pretty big topic today.
Fun topic.
So yeah, I think just to open up, just to preface a little bit, I think we acknowledge.
The way he was looking at the
Why does he stare at his mic?
I was
like
almost like,
I was cross-eyed.
I think we live. Well, I don't think this, but we live in a pornographic culture. So that doesn't have to be necessarily sex on a screen or. Sorry, there was something before
There
the video.
was an inside joke before
That's
the
not crude
video
up. It's not crude.
that something slipped up,
yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
It was,
but
just
or
take
it
our
could
word
be-
for
this
it.
is serious. We're serious.
right.
We are.
Or it could be like someone wearing something that's pornographic. So Vodi Bakum gave like an image of like a scale of 1 to 10. So like 10 being the most extreme examples of involvement in pornographic images or examples and whatnot. And then 1 would be the least. And basically, as a whole, in general, people are usually at least like a 3 or 4. And so whenever we move along to like 5 or 6, or like somebody is at 5 or 6, we're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like we're just, the norm is here. And then when somebody gets to 9, it's like, well, it's not really that bad. And along this trail, we just keep getting desensitized to it.
Yeah.
And so then we get to 9 and we're like, oh my gosh, like, how did I get here? I need to stop saying that. Oh my goodness, how did we get here? And I think a big way for us to help, for us to, first of all, stop going to 9 or even like go back down to 0 is to acknowledge that sex on a screen isn't the only thing that's bad. 9 isn't the problem. We need to acknowledge the
Yeah.
root of where it comes from
Right.
and what's
That's
around
good.
us. It's 1, the commercials that we see. Maybe it's the people that we hang around with. Maybe it's all these different things that add up to 9.
Right.
So we have to acknowledge the culture that we are in, and then how do we go about fighting lust, sexual temptation, all these different things that go into sexual immorality and things
Right.
like that. So lust, big deal in our society. I
For
guess
sure.
how do
Totally.
we go about fighting lust?
It's not really just a big deal. I feel like it's kind of like pocketed. Like people just kind of hide the fact that it's a big deal. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We just kind of, like you said, it's like the normal now. People just kind of make it seem like that's the just expected from everybody. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's not weird.
Oh, you're still a virgin?
Yeah, like that kind of thing
Loser.
is it's I mean, obviously sin is very prevalent in the world, and I mean it comes out pretty heavy in this topic for sure.
Right.
I think we should kind of give like a biblical definition of lust just as like a base. Like how does the Bible define lust? When it speaks on lust, and it does a lot, what is it referring to?
Remember when we were on the way to the
Maverick City Council?
Maverick City, and we were
Yeah.
having this conversation with like your mom.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was really weird. Thank you guys for bringing that up.
No,
in the
you're
car with my
welcome.
mom.
Wesley started saying some sus things.
Yeah, I did.
I think lust is
Why did we have to bring that up?
what? Like,
A lot of fun things happened on that trip,
it's
didn't
kind of a hard definition. Desiring something that you don't have,
Right.
which is sinful.
Even one of the 10 Commandments.
Right. How would you define it? What are you looking for?
Well, because the Bible when it says the word lust, like in our translations,
Mhm.
it doesn't always mean sexual lust.
Right.
There's multiple kinds of lust. Lust can simply just be a strong desire for something.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
when it talks about like coveting your neighbor's possessions,
Right.
it's like that kind of thing. That's lust. Like you're lusting after what someone else has. So it's almost like a form of jealousy in that way.
Right.
Or
Lust
like
of the eyes, lust of the flesh. I mean,
exactly,
some
yeah.
different lusts.
But the lust we're talking about right now is sorry,
Mm-mm.
just pulled a U right there. We're more dominantly talking about like sexual lust because I feel like that's just the prevalent thing that we want to talk about right now. While other types of lust are definitely something that the world struggles with right now with like materialism and like things like that. But right for this episode, we're talking about like sexual desire, sexual temptation, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think also just speaking like from our experiences, I mean, we're men, so
Right.
I think we see that side of it more than just automatic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And I think in the church, it's kind of hard. This is a topic that doesn't like to get talked about a lot because I think it's something that we just kind of pretend that we as Christians don't go through it. Like we don't experience this kind of thing.
Right.
Like we try to act like that's how the world is. When in reality, that's not at all how it is. Like we struggle with it.
isn't that
as well.
sad?
Yeah.
You go into church, you're like, my victory's already won.
Yeah.
Like,
You put on that face.
my
right?
battle's been won,
That
and
mask.
we can't go through struggles because we're saved, and we have to like
Right.
put on a show, and just sad because
I mean, so that's something I've kind of been like interested in recently or passionate about is learning the effects of porn and how it affects people psychologically, but also it's an ethical thing too. But we can see that it's a big deal because, I mean, yes, the numbers look different. It affects people differently, but whenever we're talking about porn, it usually goes to like younger men, but really it's affecting literally everyone,
Mhm.
like girls too. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
it's ow! I just got like bit by something or something.
Sorry, that was my toe.
Probably the flesh in my side or my thorn in my.
Thorn
What
in
did I
your
just
flesh.
said?
Thorn in your flesh.
I can't talk. What did I just?
You can do it. You can do it. Oh, that's funny.
These dictionary things aren't working. Honestly, I've been slacking, so that's probably why.
Oh yeah, he's trying to boost his vocabulary recently.
But 1 in every 5 searches on the internet is related to porn.
That's
1 in every
crazy.
8 porn video includes sexual violence in it.
Mm.
So it's not just a psychological
Oh,
thing.
wow.
It's doing all these terrible things to our mind and our motivation and our desire towards God because that sin separates us.
Right.
But it's also an ethical thing. It is affecting other people's lives. So,
Yeah, I think
anyways,
past the obvious commands that we have not to partake in that kind of thing, it also just affects us psychologically.
mhm.
More than just like direct like porn sites. Like you talked about, porn and lust comes from a lot more than
Right.
just that. But like I've heard like the way that those things affects our minds those consequences carry over into our lives. I mean, there's no way to escape it. Especially
Yeah.
like through marriage and things. I think anybody would tell you that problems arise because of those, whether it's addictions or just short actions of lust, like things like that. Those affect you into your life. Like with porn specifically, I know JP talks about it a lot because he, before he knew the Lord, he had a struggle with lust. And not saying that people who know the Lord can't struggle with lust, because
Right.
like we said earlier, we all struggle with it. But he said the consequences, like he describes it as being addicted to variety. And I think that's a good way to put it because when you're partaking in lust or like looking at porn and that kind of thing, you're convincing your mind after, over time to want different things. Like you'll get bored of one thing, you'll go on to the next. And sadly, that progresses and becomes like very sad and dangerous, really. But yeah, you're convincing your mind to get used to seeing something different. And so once you get into a marriage, you'll get bored of things because your mind has been trained to want variety and not one person, right? And that's such a dangerous thing. And that's going to affect not just you, but it's going to affect your future spouse and your future family because of the way that your mind has been trained and processes things now because of what you've done in your past kind of
Right.
thing.
Probably it's going to affect your spouses because we are training for divorce.
Yeah, exactly. Like
whenever we're doing
yeah,
this,
You're,
right?
you're tricking your mind into thinking that you're never going to want just one person.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
The crazy thing too is that like, speaking on our generation, like we've grown up in this big like booming pornographic like industry, and like we've grown up in it. So like if you ever, it just ruins us from
Right.
an early age, and we don't know any different. So like there could be somebody right now that listening to the podcast that doesn't see it as necessarily an issue, but thinks of it as just like every day, or like,
It's just normal.
and I'm talking specifically about, porn, like that lust,
Right.
like that could be a daily thing. It's normal. Like your friends might do it as well. Everybody partakes in it. The world sees it as fine. You do as well. Like that could be and it's sad, because like there's so much more. Well, it's just fake. It's not real life
Right.
at all. None of it, and that's gonna prove to give you a lot of problems.
Damage you.
Right.
Yeah.
Baggage. James 1 talks a lot about temptation and how do we overcome that? But then I think it's James 2, and a lot of people think it breaks and it's just talking about something different. I probably should look it up because I'm going to butcher it, but he talks about everything that comes from the Lord is good, right? So it's this idea of, God gives us sexual desires for, a good purpose and a good reason, so that inside of marriage, inside the confines of a covenant, we can use those.
Right.
However, when we try to take something from God, it's this idea, another thematic idea of God, what God meant for good, we're using for evil. And so we take these we take these desires and we express them outside the covenant of marriage, and we, before marriage or whatever. But you said something that kind of spurred that idea. So we need to first, and we also need to realize after that God is faithful. He gave those to us for a reason.
Mhm.
And so anything outside of his purpose is going to be so superficial and so fake, right? But inside the confines of marriage or whatever that looks like, it's going to be glorious. So we can trust in God that he has meant these things for a good purpose.
Yeah, I think part of that is like just us as people, we're addicted to those like temporary moments of pleasure, and we kind of forget about the consequences of things. And so like with lust and that leads into like masturbation and things like that, we're seeking that just quick burst of pleasure.
Dopamine.
Yeah, and it's a shoot, that was a voice crack. It's not even late. It's like 2 p.m. But we're seeking that just like instant gratification that comes from things like that. And we really neglect to think, golly, man, what is going on? We really neglect to think about the consequences that come from that, and really even what our actions are doing. And I think the devil is really good at convincing us like, oh, like it's okay. Like you've already done it before. Why not do it again? Or, oh, this will be the last time, it's whatever. But yeah, just that.
We're being desensitized.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so annoying.
And it's not even just lust that is the, what, like instant gratification. Like
Right.
our whole lives are built around that, but that's definitely a big part of it.
Right. Growing up with stupid iPhones.
Yeah, for real. We can get whatever we want. And and speaking on like porn and
It's
stuff,
direct access.
it's anybody in the world can access it from anywhere at any time, like they want. So it's way easier for us to get into that rabbit hole than what has been in the past.
Right.
Yeah, and us keeping quiet and like just pocketing
Yeah.
it,
Keeping
especially
it in
hiding it.
darkness.
as the
Yeah.
church. Like, I hope none of this is sounding like we're calling out specific groups of people, but like the church, like we spoke about earlier in this episode, how we hide it as like Christians, and it's something we don't speak about. I think it's because I think everybody in this culture today, I think a lot lot of struggle with it. And
Realistically, yeah.
realistically, I think it's
Anybody that
and it's
doesn't,
not
I'm
just an
impressed.
iPhone, right? It's like Netflix. Like it's like check out all the Netflix like
Yeah.
original series. Like every single one of them are just packed. You probably see sex or like
Yeah.
sexual content on every single one of them.
Right.
And it's like, it's not just porn, but it's like the desensitizing part that you talked about. Like it's in advertisements, it's in commercials, and you can't guard yourself to everything. But
Right.
then again, it's like, if you need that, guard yourself to everything.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not trying to be like this legalistic group of people.
Right.
We're trying to recognize the need for Christ and the obedience that needs to come with that. I love
Yeah.
the quote by A.W. Tozer. He talks about the church is at the height of its heresy or whatever.
Is it disobedience? Height of its.
Yeah, it's the church is at the height of its
No.
You
the
got this.
church.
Wait.
Yeah, I'm right.
Yeah,
I'm right.
yeah.
The church is at the height of its heresy when it says that obedience is legalism.
Yeah, there it is.
That one took a little bit, but
Yeah.
when we call obedience legalism, when it's really obedience, we're being some heretics
Yeah.
that need to repent.
Well, I mean, it seems radical what we're saying, like trying
Right.
to get those things out of your life. But the Bible is, I mean, if you ask me, the Bible's pretty radical. I mean, it tells us if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. If your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out. Like, and I think that can be taken in a way that like we can apply today. If this certain aspect of your life is a main stumbling block for you, then cut it out, right?
Yeah.
Like if going to this place is leading you into lust, don't go to that place anymore, kind of thing.
And it seems hard because this life now is filled with so much busyness and
Yeah.
so much like things throwing at you constantly. And now in the good old US of A and like third world country, you got just so many things that are kind of just in my life, so many things handed to me. I have it pretty good.
Right.
And, a lot of things I didn't really have to work for, I just got, and I'm grateful for those. But in the way that looks for me now, when I'm going through life, if I have to throw my Apple Watch out because it doesn't work anymore, like I'm freaking out because I'm not getting the notifications, or
Right.
if I'm, I can't look up on Instagram what the latest news is, or look up on ESPN what the latest
Yeah.
score
Right.
is or stuff. It's like we're so used to just this instant gratification stuff,
We can
and
get any knowledge we want at any time.
but it's like this but this life is so much more than all of these things that the devil puts in front of us. Like we, ultimately this is us, like the sanctification process to what life will be like in heaven and what it will be like with God. So
Right.
like if we can get that picture as Christians, like, okay, yeah, sure, a phone is pretty important to work, to function, to like get around places, to communicate. I mean, it's an important part of life right now, but ultimately, like that's not going with you to heaven. So like, is it worth it to get rid of it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess that calls for
Right.
you, but
Right. I
gotta
think
look at those things.
something that you were talking about reminded me of something that John. I don't know if I need to get this closer.
You're good.
Something that John Piper was talking about. He kind of gave 2 points on how to fight the temptation of lust, and one was, his second one was,
Check the
recep-
notes.
notes.
reception.
right.
God, it's always a hard word for me to remember. It's like reception, like what you are receiving. He kind of related it all back to a diet and working out. So the diet part is this reception. What are we taking in? We're taking in sleep, healthy food, all these things like recovery. And so this kind of relates spiritually because how are we feeding ourselves, right? Are we feeding ourselves with TikTok, with Instagram, with all the things of this world that is throwing at us, these commercials, all these different things? Or are we feeding our minds and our souls with the word of God through prayer? Are we renewing our mind? Romans 12:2. Are we being sanctified, right? So God is sovereign over all these different things: justification, regeneration, glorification, but sanctification. I learned today, Jehovah, I'm gonna be terrible, Jehovah Mekadishkim, something like that. Our God who sanctifies. So God is sanctifying us. We need to put that in his hands. So it's reception, but also resistance. So just like us fighting that weight to push it up, that barbell, baby, we're pushing against that sin. We're resisting that sin
Yeah.
or that weight in this sense, so we can grow stronger, right? So that
That's good.
so that same temptation, that same desire is going to become weaker because we're getting stronger, but we can also face new temptations. We're not going to like try and face them, but we can face them with more strength
Right.
and more endurance, with more steadfastness.
Yeah.
So this idea of what are we taking in? Are we renewing our mind, being sanctified by God? And then are we resisting it? Like 1 Corinthians 10:13 talks about there is no temptation that can overtake you. Maybe by yourself, right? But
Right.
we're not just by ourselves. God puts us through these things so that we're not dependent on ourselves, but we're dependent on Him, to trust in Him, especially through these temptations, right?
Yeah, I love how you talked about how we need God to fight these things, like you're talking about building up like resistance and things like that, and renewing our minds. And that takes us having faith in God and focusing on God as opposed to focusing on how we can do it on our own.
Right.
And I think the Bible is very clear on us being dependent on God. And really, I think we could do a whole episode on dependence because I think it's a really cool topic. But the Bible also kind of tells us that through that, we can work with like a community of believers to also fight this kind of thing. So I think it's very beneficial to have people around you that you can, one, confess your sins, because that's
been big for us.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
Another inside joke.
That was
If you
deep.
know, you know.
Anyways, yeah, but just having people around you that you can confess your sins to, because we're called to do that, and then bear one another's burdens. It really is like a very
Galatians 6:2.
nice. I can never get the
We
verse.
spoke about the repentance episode.
Yeah, but it's so liberating just to be able to talk to other people about what you're going through and then hear what they're going through and then be able to pray for one another. It's very powerful, and it's a big step in getting through these temptations and these trials that we go through with lust, because we really can't fight it on our own. We need God. And with, a one way to grow closer to God is through community and having
community is
believers around you. So
Big one.
Yep.
we
Super
still got
important.
7, bro. We're
Dang.
good. Yeah.
What else?
Another thing that actually I saw, what's today, Sunday, Friday, how so JP does like the Friday Q&A, and a lot of people ask him about his like battle with like porn and lust and things, because he's very outspoken about it, which I think is cool. And one of the people on there on Friday asked how it was something about, I don't remember how it was worded. I wish I would have screenshotted it, but it was something about like how he won the battle with lust. And he was like, well, you're asking the wrong question, because I didn't win the battle with lust, because every day is still a battle, right? And one of the things that he said he does today to continue to fight, because it's still a fight, even though he's maybe grown in his lust and his porn addiction. One of the things he does today is
He's grown in it.
Yeah, sorry. Grown from it.
Yeah, we know what
Yeah.
you mean. Yeah.
my bad. Is he attacks those kind of things at the thought level. So he'll
Right.
confess simple things that just as soon as the temptation comes up, he knows he has to go confess to somebody.
He's stopping it at one.
Yeah, he's stopping it there before it even gets to anything else. It's setting up that barrier before you get to the sin part, right? So I
Right.
think that's a big part of it. And you might have to build to that, because I don't think it's always, not everybody can just cold turkey things. But just having those people around you that you can go to, and as soon as something comes up and you have that temptation to lust or watch porn or whatever it may be for whoever, just go to them and tell them, ask them to pray for you, anything like that. And I feel like there's a lot of power in that. I really like the way he described that.
I'm really digging the 1 to 9 and how we always try to get as close as we can. JP talks more about it.
Just
Close
kinda
as we can to this without, what is too far in a relationship? What can I still do this and
How
not have
close
sex?
can I
And
get? Yeah.
can I look at this? And
It's like sticking your toes in the water.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
Then you get
And then
to
you get to
shin
your knee.
level and then
Yeah.
knee.
then we're drowning, and the lifeguard is, anyways.
Attaboy.
JP gives an analogy of, the skyscraper, and we
Yeah.
want to get as close as we can to the edge. This is me.
Is the bottle the
Yeah,
edge?
that was me.
Yeah.
That was me.
No,
No, this
no,
is
the
the edge.
table's
The
the
table's
edge.
the edge.
This-
I mean,
is
yeah,
a person.
the bottle's a person. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so we try to get as close as we can when he's like, oh, what can I do without sinning? But really, if we want to be away from that sin, if we're not going to jump off the skyscraper, why are we even getting to the edge? Go over there, get on the elevator, and go to the countryside where there's no skyscrapers. Like,
Yeah.
just get away from the edge in
Should
the
have
first
never
place.
should have
Yeah.
never gone to the skyscraper.
So, my goodness.
But again, it's
Good.
like these might be like brand new ideas to some people.
Yeah.
Sadly, like,
And it seems radical.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
And I found my personal life, these are all ideas that are in my head, but sometimes it's so hard. Am I being legalistic, or I mean, is that just I'm so
Right.
compromised? I'm so
so
compromising.
easily compromised.
Yeah, it's so
Easily
easily
compromised, yeah.
compromised. It's just so annoying. Like I can talk this talk, and a lot of people can, but are we walking the walk?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I hope we've kind of implied that enough that like at us three we all go through this. Like we struggle like actively right now, we struggle with these things.
Yeah,
So
I'm getting married in less than 6 months.
yeah, Brother Wesley's been fighting an uphill
He's not
battle
gonna
for,
have to.
for
I've been
a while.
engaged for a
Yeah.
long time, so
Can you
Um,
lust after your wife?
That's a
No.
that's a tough question.
I agree.
you can't list that stuff.
As long as it's not selfish. Yeah, no.
Well,
I
that's inside the
actually-
covenant of marriage.
Yeah, but-
it's meant for good.
Would you agree though? You can't lust after something that you have.
Listen, yeah,
not well, it's not necessarily lust, but you can definitely sexually sin inside of marriage.
yeah, I agree.
'Cause
But it's
any-
just like
any
God is
sexual act
being
that you're-
jealous, but He's being jealous
Right.
over
but you,
what
but he's
is rightfully His.
he specified that like lusting after your wife, like specifically.
Yeah, okay.
The,
Lust.
the wife that you have.
Well, a big part of lust is like selfishness and stuff, and I think that's a big part
Right.
of sin. But so in that case, yeah, you can be selfish in a marriage, but it's a lot different than
I
what
agree.
we're talking about right
I agree with that.
now. What was I gonna say something before that?
I think you were. I mean, I can't
I
remember where you were
remember
going with it.
I can't either.
What was the
I
thing?
interrupted you by saying, "Can you lust
Can
after
you
your
lust
wife?"
at your wife?
I know.
He just finished saying that he was.
Oh
gonna-
yeah, I was saying that like we all go through this, so I hope like
Oh, yeah.
the people listening don't.
We struggle with lust.
Yeah, just in case you forgot.
Whoops.
I hope the people listening to this don't think we're being like, oh, stop struggling with lust. Like we're not trying to be
Yeah.
like demanding of what you guys are doing or like condemning you because we're talking about this because we struggle with it as well, and we hope that like
Right.
hearing our struggle and how we've learned to fight it and are continuing to fight it can
Yeah.
like be encouraging or help other people and teach other people how to do it as well.
Right. And I think a really important thing is, like we kind of already talked about it, being transparent with people. If you're struggling with something, tell them because they're
Mhm.
probably struggling with the same exact thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Confession.
Honestly.
Confession's big.
Don't hide it.
And
Quit.
so when people
bottling
come
it.
to you in these circumstances, don't be surprised, right? Or don't be the person that's pointing the finger at them. I heard someone say the worst
I heard
thing.
about that too.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
him
did
say
you
that.
guys hear
Yeah.
about that? The worst thing that Job's friends did was start talking. They were being pretty good
Right.
in the time that they were just
Right.
letting it alone. Instead of coming at them with a blabbing mouth and a pointing finger, we just need to come at them with open arms.
Yeah.
That's good.
Showing grace, showing mercy, but also just listening with empathy,
Yeah.
listening to understand them because we probably understand them, but
Right.
also listening to respond when that appropriate time.
And that's what we're doing to you guys. We're here with open arms.
Yep.
To bear one another's burdens.
Wait,
That's
what's that
great.
song? Open Arms?
Da-da-da-da.
There we go.
All right.
Night.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We'll land it there. Thank
Yeah.
you guys for listening. We love you. Catch you guys next week on the Unknown Podcast. Adios.
Peace out.
See ya. Do that every time.
Short pause today.